Good afternoon, everyone. One of the greatest challenges we face today lies in mobility. People need a seemingly infinite network of vehicles and transportation systems to uphold societies and economies. Cars, buses, trains, trucks, and other modes of transport, each leaving their mark on the environment. How large a mark is. Around 1/4 of global CO2 emissions come from the transportation of people and goods. So creating sustainable transportation solution is one of the greatest opportunities facing cities, governments, society, and industries today, but also is a great opportunity for us, for society, and making changes in the green transportation. That's the aim of today's panel. So it's welcome to the Smart, Green, Connected Transport panel today. I am Nora Najur, Professor of Innovation Management from Adam Smith Business School at Glasgow University. I would like to introduce our panel members from left to the right. Daniela Petrovic, CEO and co-founder of Darwin Innovation. David Owens, Head of Technical Trials, Virgin Media O2. Robert Gardner, Head of Innovation, Network from Network Rail. And is online, Rafaela Hidalgi is joining us, Head of Technical Trials from Spain, a telecommunication engineer from Hispasat, Spain. Paul Coffey, CEO at the Scotland 5G Center, thank you. Mohammed Imran, Professor of Communication Systems and University of Glasgow, from University of Glasgow. I would like to start with you, Daniela, who is the CEO and co-founder of Darwin Innovation Group. But before starting asking you some questions, I would like to show Darwin Innovation video, Darwin Innovation Group video. Darwin brings together industry, academy, and also government people together in a consortium to develop disruptive innovation. I'm really proud to be part of this team from the academic side from Adam Smith Business School. Thank you. Okay, can we show the video? Okay, thank you. Daniela, we have seen Darwin making strides from one milestone to another with always having green agenda and in its solution. We have seen your ubiquitous solution operating in Cornwall recently and autonomous shuttle operating in Oxfordshire. Do you believe in this And similar innovation will inspire people to think differently about transport and adopt its benefits soon.
First of all, thank you very much, Nuran, and big thanks for University of Glasgow for organizing this panel. I think it's very relevant that we are doing this panel during the COP26, especially because our solution is supporting green agenda. Darwin, as you could see from the video before, is a collaboration between industry, academia, and government, and supported by European Space Agency, Virgin Media O2, and universities like University of Glasgow and University of Oxford. So we have proven that ubiquitous communication is the way that we can improve lives in general, not only transportation. So what we are doing in Darwin, we are combining 5G and terrestrial communication technology with satellite communication in order to create this ubiquitous connectivity. The Cornwall use case you mentioned, Nuran, and the autonomous shuttle are just two examples of this technology. So what we would like to do with Darwin is take the innovation out of the labs and show it to the public. So currently we operate first autonomous shuttle in Harwell campus in Oxfordshire, where we are basically allowing public to come and experience autonomous driving. So this is the first autonomous driving shuttle registered for as a public service, and it's our intention to expand this service to other areas of the UK.
Okay, thank you. Daniela, I would like to continue with you. What are the current enablers of and challenges to implementation of green innovations for a high-tech startup like Darwin?
So we, as one of the solutions that we have in autonomous driving, we added a product called AQP, which is Air Quality Platform. So what autonomous driving is offering us is to add new products to the solution. So we have a pre-production environment with our testing vehicles, but also we have now a production environment, which is our autonomous shuttle. So that allows us to test the products in the lab and then take them into the production environment. And AQP is one of these products. So basically, it will offer us an opportunity to see the air quality in the environment the shuttle operates in. So the current solutions are static ones, where they are offering the visibility of the air quality in the area that the static station is. Well, we are going a step further. We are adding these AQPs on the vehicles. So we want to offer an opportunity for people to see the air quality of the environment the vehicles are operating in. So that will allow dynamic visualization of our environment. So these are one of the big opportunities that we can offer, and we work very closely with the regulators how these opportunities can be then moved into real life situations and become a commodity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daniela. I would like to move on to David Owens, who is the head of technical trials from Virgin Media O2. David, O2 has been always at the forefront of innovation with projects like Darwin Project, being one of its big adventures in its connectivity market. With Virgin Media O2 as a new company, do you believe that the speed of innovation is going to carry on?
Yes, absolutely. And as you say, we're coming from a place of strength. I think with a really good track record of collaborating with like-minded partners on innovative trials and outcomes across a number of the sectors. And I think if I think back across this year, my team has worked on a number of projects in the health sector, transport, manufacturing, and live experiences, you know, while we've been developing sort of POCs. And we have, I think, some real trials there that will have social benefits going forward in the years to come. So I mean, if I think of a few examples just for you quickly, we've got 5G Festival, which is a DCMS project looking at creating virtual festivals, which was actually designed before COVID. So it's actually really relevant now, but at the time we wanted to create a virtual platform to allow combine live experiences with virtual experiences for live audiences and for remote audiences. We've also got a project working on improving the sporting experience, getting fans closer to the action by using 5G mobile broadcast. And that enables them to see the game as though they were sat at home, but whilst experiencing the game live. We've also been working with a drone company, ferrying medical supplies, and their aim is to work out on organ transfer and vaccine transfer between hospitals as well. So there's some great projects there, as I've said. And then, I mean, it's really great to have worked on those DCMS projects. I mean, I think DCMS have really funded an excellent suite of projects, especially the CREATE project in the more recent phases of the 5G projects. And it's been great to see that enthusiasm and encouragement from government for those projects. So we've already touched on Vista and Festival, but there's ENCODE in there as well, and 5G New Thinking, looking at coverage solutions for the Orkney Islands as well. And we were actually working not with Glasgow on that one, but with Strathclyde on that project. So it's looking really exciting as well for next year as well. And I think, you know, along with the work that we've been doing with Daniela, there's lots of other really interesting projects coming. So I think innovation is alive and well in Virgin Media O2.
Okay, thank you, David. David, my second question is related with COP26 because it's Virgin Media O2 focused on clean transportations and clean transport as its focus at COP26. So can you give us an overview of what is displayed on COP26?
Yeah, I mean, we've worked really hard on the COP26 stand. I think if we look back to really fundamentally where we see that 5G and Virgin Media can help, it really comes down to the fundamentals that we try to help people work from home whenever they can. If they can't work from home, then we want to ensure that the journeys they then take are the most efficient and pollution-free journeys that they can take. So with that in mind, we designed the stand to obviously incorporate Darwin and all the great work that Darwin are doing and their air quality platform. We've put on there also a simulator that allows you to feel what it's like to drive an autonomous vehicle, so experience both the autonomous driving experience and the manual driving experience. Along with that, we've been working with the Smart Mobility Lab in London, and they have a number of camera poles throughout they've got 2 routes within the borough of Greenwich and Queen Elizabeth Park that allow autonomous vehicles to be tested in the real world. And on those routes, they have a number of camera poles that act very like the systems that are put into the car, like Daniela's got in her car to drive the car autonomously. You can use the same systems to look at the road traffic and look at traffic flows, sequencing of lights, etc. But also they're great places to put pollution sensors. So again, back to the air quality, we've focused on having air quality sensors both in the borough itself. So we've deployed a number in the borough to monitor pollution outside school, which is at the Bobby Moore Academy on the Queen Elizabeth Park. And also in the Olympic Park, but also here in Glasgow too. So there are a number of sensors from a company called Aterium that we're connecting together. So you can get a view of what that pollution looks like. And the Bobby Moore School gives us a view of people coming to pick their kids up from school. And you can see how much pollution is generated from those cars parked outside of schools, for example. So we're giving a view of what that looks like. And I think the stand really is just showing that we are committed to making a real difference in that space, really.
Okay, thank you, David. I would like to move on to Robert Gardner, who is the head of innovation in Network Rail. Welcome, Robert. The railways is only one of the most environmental friendly ways to travel. And I know as Network Rail is working very hard to make it even greener these days. And you have a nice environmental sustainable strategy started last year, but it's going to go up to 2050. Could you tell us key points from this sustainability strategy from Network Rail?
Yeah, certainly. Well, thanks for inviting me here today, because rail is going to play a very important role, I think, in the green agenda as we move forward. But yeah, you're spot on. Network Rail has recently published an environmental sustainability strategy, which targets what we need to do all the way between now and 2050. And it will be updated regularly during that time as as things change, technologies move on. But by the way, it is freely downloadable on the internet via our website, or you can just type in a Google search. We should know it isn't just about tackling climate change, although this is a key component in the strategy. In it, it really is all about how Network Rail, its staff, and the ecosystem we exist in can start thinking and planning and operating in an environmentally friendly way. And in the same way that the safety culture has become very well embedded within Network Rail over the last few decades, we want environmental sustainability to be part of that DNA as well. So the four core environmental sustainability priorities are, just in brief, a low emission railway, reducing the amount of CO2 produced per passenger kilometre, a reliable railway that is resilient to climate change that we're seeing all around us, and we've seen plenty of examples just in the run up to COP26 for people being inconvenienced, shall we say, at Euston Station and elsewhere. Improved biodiversity of plants and wildlife, because the railway is a huge landowner in the UK, a massive landowner, there's so much we can do there. And we are a big user of materials, so minimising the waste being produced and the sustainable use of materials as well. So for each of these four priorities, there are actually key milestones that must be met, and by when. So these will be measured, monitored, and absolutely met. So for instance, for the low emission railway challenge, which is I think arguably the most important challenge, which is the decarbonisation of traction via electric, hydrogen, battery-powered technologies that Darwin is well into. And there are practical milestones associated with moving also to electric road vehicles. We have a huge fleet as well, electric heating in our buildings, and reducing chemical and other pollutants. So all these things are in the strategy, and target dates when we must meet them. So adapting to climate change is a key priority for the railways, as we've seen. The rail travel needs to remain relevant, reliable, and safe through all of this time. We need to be able to adapt to the changing climate. We've seen a lot of weather challenges recently, like I said, rain, washing things away potentially, but we need to rise up to that challenge. We're also, like I said, one of the biggest landowners in Great Britain. Therefore, another key priority is to ensure we protect, maintain, and actually enhance biodiversity on the railway. And in fact, by 2035, we aim to actually see a net gain of biodiversity on the railway. So we're not just trying to keep the status quo either. And then lastly, we're committed to reducing industrial waste over the next few years. So by 2029, we will be reusing, recycling, or redeploying all of our non-hazardous infrastructure materials. So these are just the strategies there. The challenge now is meeting.
Okay, thank you. There are lots of nice strategies and initiatives. Hopefully, we will see in the coming future. But what are do you think there are some challenges to implement these strategies? What are the challenges?
Yeah, there are always a lot of challenges, especially in big organisations. But I mean, I think predominantly if we look at where we are right now, predominantly the railways in the UK are non-electrified. So we have a lot to do in terms of traction decarbonisation. I know there's a massive amount of work going on with that. I mean, you may even have been able to book the battery-operated train that's been flying the tracks of Glasgow throughout COP. I don't know if you've seen that at Central Station. I think you may still be able to book your ride on that. But the other challenge is a lot of our infrastructure does date back 150 years or more to Victorian times, and that definitely causes a lot of challenges, dealing with the impacts of weather. I think if I sort of be a little bit honest, and what you see is what you get. We do have a relatively conservative culture in our organisation, and it's not always as open to innovative thinking as it maybe might be. So I think there's in addition to the environmental cultural shift, I think we also need a little bit of a cultural shift in terms of being open to innovation. So you can believe me that I'm working on that in the background to make that happen as well. So. But we're not in a bad place in a way. We've got an environmental strategy now, so we know what we need to do. We recognise there are problems that need to be solved. We are owned by the UK government, so we do come effectively with the backing of government and resources that government can bring to bear. So the public are very, very concerned about climate change and expect us to step up to the mark as well. So I think the public really ought to be providing the necessary pressure and catalysing what we need to do as well. And we have a big R&D department centralised in Milton Keynes, of which I'm a bit of an offshoot up in Scotland. So, you know, and we do also, I think it's worth saying, we have 5 highly empowered regional directorates. So we've had a sort of a series of devolution within Network Rail. So we have Scotland's Railway up here, we've got Wales and Western, Southern, etc., etc. And each of those is a very highly empowered business unit, which is going to be able to take forward many of these initiatives on the ground. So I think we're in a good place at this point.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I would like to move on to Rafael Hidalgo, a telecommunications engineer from Hispasat, Spain. She's going to join us online today. Rafaela, satellite industry has been very, very quiet for a long time previously, but recently we had some major improvements and innovations are coming from like SpaceX, OneWeb, and space travel. Everything space related at the moment seems to be much more available comparing to previous years. Hispasat was always is one of the satellite operators open for innovation, and some very good projects and have a key role in Darwin project. Connected trains in Spain, which links with Robert, what he's talking about for Network Rail in the UK. So what do you think, how important is for Hispasat, and what attracts Hispasat to be a part in the forefront innovation?
Well, first of all, thank you, Nuran, for invite me for this event, and Hispasat, it's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you today, even if it's online. So please let me introduce Hispasat for those listeners who don't know us. Hispasat is a satellite communications operator with 30 years of experience. We currently operate 9 geosynchronous satellites in 6 different orbital positions and 1 satellite in inclined orbit. The Hispasat group maintains an important presence in Europe and in America, in several countries such as Spain, Brazil, the United States, Mexico, Peru, Colombia, and Argentina. A good part of our business is based on video distribution and internet access services, and we are experts in satellite connectivity for mobility platforms such as trips, trains, or aircrafts. Answering Nuran's question, Hispasat has been always committed to innovation, and we believe that that's the best way to respond to the challenges that arise in our sector. We apply this innovation to our new satellite infrastructures, and that is why we are leading programs for new, more flexible satellites with greater capacity and features, such as our next Hispasat Nexus, a very high throughput satellite with a wide coverage over all Americas, as well as the Atlantic North and South corridors for maritime, aircraft, trains, and many other communication services, which will be available in 2023. We also do innovation at the services and application level by participating in the development of new generation ground segment equipment that facilitates satellite access, as the flat antenna based on beam steering techniques that are able of always pointing towards the satellite, and with a special interest in reducing power consumption. In addition, for Hispasat is also very important how the satellite is integrated with the rest of the terrestrial networks, such as the 5G ecosystem that is already part of our society. So we also invest in research, development, and innovation in this field, taking into account the green technology of the satellite, since it does not need the deployment of additional infrastructure for its operation. An example of innovation projects is the Darwin project, well known by all of those present here, which will develop a solution able to connecting an autonomous car no matter where it moves, thanks to the combination of 5G terrestrial cellular coverage and our satellite coverage. At Hispasat, we understand that this is the type of technology that will be required in the coming days to guarantee a sustainable future, and therefore our commitment to this exciting project. Another of our leading projects in there is the Renfe project in cooperation with Telefónica. Renfe is the Spanish train operator. We are developing a solution to provide connectivity to passengers on board in high-speed trains. Communication satellites, thanks to their global coverage, are a very effective solution to complement land mobile networks where their coverage does not exist or is not enough. A combination of cellular and satellite is the best solution for board Wi-Fi services, delivering seamless connectivity without disruptions of passengers' broadband access during all the routes. Using band aggregation technologies like smart routers that employ SD-WAN technology, we can combine satellite traffic with the existing cellular traffic, managing to increase the current throughput and performance delivered to each train. Long time talking. I think I answered the question.
Thank you, Rafael. I would like to come to the floor and continue with Paul Coffey, who is the CEO of the Scotland 5G Centre. So, welcome, Paul. You relatively recently took a leading position of the Scottish 5G Centre. Where do you think that 5G will play the most important role in the future of innovation and driving the green agenda in Scotland?
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me along today. So it's not that recent, it's about 18 months now, and I think all underlined by a COVID pandemic, and I think that's kind of hopefully bookending it in a little bit. It's highlighting that you know the criticality of digital infrastructure. I think infrastructure is that platform for innovation, and the Scotland 5G Centre was established two years ago, and we're working with Mohammed at Glasgow University, Strathclyde University, and bringing together academia, industry, to looking at research and projects, working in conjunction with government as well. So really where we are with 5G, it's still arguably at its infancy. Whilst it's 2 years old, it's still perhaps very much considered a consumer offering. And here in Scotland, what I'm looking to do is build that ecosystem. It's really to amplify the awareness of what 5G is and what it can mean with different people in different sectors and in different verticals. And then with that, really help people as a pathway to understand how they can access that technology, whether that be through the commercial networks, such as O2 Telefonica, or through private networks. And we've got established a program of 5G Connect innovation hubs across Scotland. We have three hubs already established, and we'll be announcing a further 3 hubs early in the new year. And that's really looking at how we build awareness around 5Gs and bring it back to personal experiences. So how do people really understand around healthcare? What does it mean? What are the challenges, for example, within healthcare today? And how could a connected healthcare help us along that journey to enable people to adopt, to trust that technology and take it from arguably, we're still very much through the support of likes of DCMS, stepped up and stood up a number of proof of concepts, but we need to look at how we take those forward into a commercial service. That's what we're trying to do within the Scotland 5G Centre. Look at not just those technology challenges, but the barriers to adoption, which are quite often almost at the business case element. So bringing it back to, I guess the green agenda and what we're trying to do here, it's really, infrastructure is that platform for innovation. So we know it's difficult. We know it's difficult. It takes time to roll out that infrastructure. So we need to do all we can collectively to look at how we can support the commercial mobile operators to roll out more and do that more cost effectively in a more agile way. So one of our projects, InfraLink, is very much a barrier buster project, looking at how we work with industry, make it easier for the commercial operators to roll out more effectively in a greener way as well. So, and in addition to that, how can we look at new business models? How can we roll out, looking at shared spectrum? How can we roll out infrastructure in some of the areas, in rural areas where potentially it's more commercially challenged for operators? So how do we look at that? How do we look at new shared infrastructure, shared RAN? How do we exploit that, looking at service and different business models around that? Because we need to ensure, in terms of the green agenda, we need to ensure there's no digital divide, and it's looking at new deployment models, new mechanisms to ensure we remove that barrier, ensure there's new, reduced net migration, and as part of that, transport is a key component to that, to make sure people have the same access to the same facilities regardless of their location, whether here in Scotland they're in the Central Belt or up in Orkney. And one of our projects, 5G New Thinking up at Orkney, the inhabitant density in Westray there is on average 5 inhabitants per kilometre. But they shouldn't be disadvantaged in that. They still should have access to the same infrastructure, the same advanced digital high bandwidth connectivity when they're able to access these services. Because if they don't, they fall back to jumping in a car or so it's how can we provide that connectivity as a platform, whether that's for smart connected vehicles, but also to look at alternatives as well.
Well, that's great. Very nice initiatives, what we could see from the 5G Scotland. But what are any enablers or challenges you might see for this green innovation initiatives implementation?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it there. It's embedding that infrastructure. Yeah. Absolutely. We know it takes time. So it's a how do we we can always do more. So how do we bring together private and public sector to support the rollout of commercial infrastructure? We're doing the Scotland 4G infill programme, which is an intervention programme supported by Scottish Government. We've got shared rural network intervention effectively from industry and UK Government, looking at a £1 billion programme looking at how we intervene to roll out more connectivity in rural. That's just one part of it. We also need to look at, touched on, innovations around kind of shared spectrum to ensure we've got a more cost-effective mechanism to deploy in rural areas. If we look at smart grids, smart connectivity, smart transport, EV charging, it's all about how we manage that and having a smart grid. So how do we, if everyone starts charging their EV vehicles tomorrow, we know we've got a challenge on the energy grid. So we need to start looking at that, in a different way to support the adoption of that. So how can 5G support EV charging? How can it support smart energy management? How can it support renewables? We need to look at it all collectively. How do we put energy back into the grid through some of this kind of smart charging capability? So what does it fall down on? It's that foundation, that infrastructure as a platform is the foundation which will allow us to build on it and start building out the infrastructure and the smart energy capabilities.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I would like to move on to Mohammed Imran. Welcome, Mohammed. Mohammed is a professor of communication systems from Glasgow University. I would like to ask Mohammed from the academic perspective, from the university perspective, are we doing enough for the green initiatives from the university side? What do you think?
So Nuran, I would say that thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me as well. And this is a really key question. But the challenge that we are facing in terms of environment, it's so huge that whatever we do, it's not enough. So we have to really continue to do our best, and whatever we can add on to it, that will really be helpful. So I would just like to say that, for example, the research that we are doing has produced some enablers to change people's behavior over long term. So digital connectivity in itself is a big platform that can provide us this opportunity to guide people and to give information to people in order to change their long-term behaviors, which can then be quite productive for saving carbon footprint and the greenhouse emissions that people are making on their individual. So people have to take this as a personal responsibility to make their individual contributions towards this big challenge that we are facing. So 5G is one system, but digital connectivity in general is making that great contribution towards meeting the net zero objectives and goals.
Do you think we have enough consortiums with the industry partners like Darwin or O2 or government organizations, and we are not just staying in our labs, but just reaching to the consumers and users?
I think there is a great need to do technical work in universities and academia across the spectrum of all technology readiness levels. So traditionally, universities have been very focused on TRL 1, technology readiness level 1, 2, 3, where they're working on blue sky ideas. And this is really important. This really brings in 10 to 20-year horizons, new technologies. If we stop doing that, then we will come into an inertia where we are trying to just repeat the same pattern again and again. But at the same time, universities should also be playing a key role in transferring knowledge and these technologies directly to industry. So luckily, I think in our university, we are doing it reasonably well. But of course, there is always an improvement scope for whatever you're doing. So, and I think there are some enablers how we can really do that. One of them is co-design. Rather than inventing research challenges and problems for PhD students and our own proposals directly by ourselves sitting in our offices, in our labs, if we are interacting with industry and if we are using platforms like Scotland 5G Center, we are working with Network Rail and events like this, we are then actually co-designing those research challenges. We are picking up the right problems from the core of the challenges that the industry is facing. And if we can focus on not only solving those problems, but then finding those innovative blue sky new ideas which can really solve those problems with a clean slate or with a new approach. I think that's how we can actually play our role better as an academic.
Yeah, because it's what we started seeing is the fifth generation universities these days, what we call good universities are generally involving not just the industry players, but government organizations and plus the community inside to see what are the key challenges that are coming from industry and what are the global challenges like green environmental challenges what we are facing at the moment to address and develop some research, co-create, maybe co-develop or co-innovate together as a consortium. So thank you, Mohammed. So I would like to move back to Daniela, because what we covered so far, what we are offering from different organizations, but I would like to hear from Daniela, what is next, what we are gonna offer from Darwin or some other organizations. It's basically, I want to ask, because Darwin is trying to combine multiple industries in his business model, and you are one of the frontier organization as you like, and you develop a nice innovation ecosystem, including like Glasgow University, Oxford University, O2, ESA, European Space Agency, Hispasat, or like even Network Rail and 5G Center. So how do you see this ecosystem triangle being developed, and how it will shape the green agenda in the future, Daniela?
So the very fact that we are today officially opening Darwin Innovation Lab at University of Glasgow is proof that these type of ecosystems can be a really big success. So we started Darwin as an ecosystem development. So we wanted to to combine this triangle of industry, academia, and government in one ecosystem. So the very fact that today we have Hispasat and VMO2 from the industry side, we have Professor Mohammed and Professor Nuran from the University of Glasgow, and we have Paul and Robert from government representation here, that shows that these ecosystems can actually work very well, and our plan is to continue to work on Darwin in this way. So to keep on involving industry, academia, and government in producing the solutions. So I'll give you some examples. So as I mentioned before, we've done technology solution in the lab. So it was very important for us to show ubiquity working. So switching between Hispasat satellite network and VMO2 network was very important for us from technological perspective. But we wanted also to show it on use case and to take the technology solution to the customers and to the enterprises to see the further opportunities. But what was also very important is to create a business model of the future, because there's a new technology, new user experiences, but we have to create a business model that businesses will adopt our innovation. So this type of labs, like Darwin Innovation Lab and at University of Glasgow, are going to provide this type of opportunities for government, industry, and academia to work together. And what Professor Mohammed mentioned, moving from very early stages of innovation to the innovation that is ready to be moved from the lab into industry setting is going to be the future of these kind of labs. So that's what we want to do, to carry on doing.
Thank you, Daniela. I would like to move on to you, David, because Virgin is doing very clear importance role for green innovation, what you explained to us. And we have seen innovation in energy savings, base station solutions, and Darwin is another good example for connected cars. But where do you see the biggest role for telecommunications companies playing a role in the green agenda?
That's a really good question. If we think about CO2 emissions, and we're talking about the importance of transport, for 1/3 of all the CO2 that's emitted today is from transport. So obviously, as I've been suggesting, transport needs to be a really key focus. And it's not just about the way that we travel, but it's also the way that we enable people to work from home. So we believe that enabling the UK to go further, faster to reduce transport emissions, helping drive us all towards net zero, is the most important thing that we can do. So how we do that, obviously, is by delivering a world-class 5G network, supporting the 4G and 3G and the 2G networks that we have out there today. But of course, now we're Virgin Media, we also have a fibre network and a fibre responsibility as well. And we do believe that that will start to power that change. And about the digital divide, as Paul said, we're deeply involved with 5G New Thinking. We've done a recent study of the Orkney Islanders to ask what they wanted from mobile connectivity in the future. And they were able to tell us that the biggest challenge for them is that they feel that they're on the cutting edge of innovation for greener solutions. So wave technology, for example, they believe that they're world leaders in wave technology, but trying to attract engineers and to keep young people to live in the Orkneys, they've got to have the best possible connectivity that they can have to get those engineers to go and work in this really innovative field. So it's really important, I think, that when we look at connectivity, we do look to make sure we solve it for everybody. I think that's really important. And when we look at our research, what kind of impact can that have? We believe that out of the 97 megatons that transport generates of CO2, that we can probably reduce that by allowing not just Virgin Media O2, but Vodafone and the others, by about 41 megatons. So between 2020 and 2035. So there's a significant contribution that the mobile networks will play in making us a greener society.
Yeah. Thank you, David. I'd like to move on to you, Robert. Could you tell us where do you see the biggest role of network rail for green agenda in the future?
Yes, it is a good question. I think probably to some extent I'm going to sort of wind the clock forward a few months, because you may have seen the recent news reports. It came out around about mainly as a result of the William Shapps report into rail, and Network Rail is going to transition into a new organisation called Great British Railways over the next couple of years, maybe by 2023 or 2024. And what that does is it's designed to bring the whole system back together again. Because at the moment, people may realise, or maybe may not realise, that Network Rail actually only operates, oversees the infrastructure. We don't have any control really over the trains. But Great British Railways will bring back together the whole system as one. And what that means is that GBR, as it seems to be going to be called, is going to be able to work towards common goals across the whole industry. And that includes efforts associated with the green agenda as well, which at the moment is difficult to do because you've got the different competing pressures of the different organisations that are involved. It's difficult to align them when we're fragmented into so many pieces. So I think what my answer to the question really then is, what can GBR do and what really ought to be doing? And internally, we'll be able to take a holistic view across the whole system. For example, one thing that we could be doing is better managing the cascading of rail vehicles. So we've got a lot of diesel vehicles, but there's electric ones coming in, and better managing how they cascade around the regions as we bring in more electrification, more hydrogen power and things like that. And again, it's quite difficult to do at the moment with all the different companies with their own units and own contractual agreements. Externally, GBR will be able to authoritatively represent the industry as a whole and drive forward many initiatives, I think, to make public transport more attractive. Especially, I think, making the government's looked into this. There's some really good reports out there. I would recommend you type into Google and try and find. But we really need to try to make door-to-door journeys as convenient as a car journey. Yeah, that will involve public transport. It will, I dare say, it will involve electric vehicles. But what we want to do is to try to encourage as many people to use the greener forms of transport, which are, believe it or not, one of the greenest forms of transport, believe it or not, is high-speed rail. And it competes with cycling for its greenness in terms of CO2 emissions, which I thought was, in fact, road cycling generates more emissions than high-speed rail. Yeah, which I thought was a bit of a surprise when you take into account the infrastructure needed as well. That's a bit of a surprising fact, really, or is it a fact? So there you go. But GBR will have the opportunity to oversee that end-to-end system and really represent rail as part of that ecosystem. So being able to have the gravitas to stitch together end-to-end, door-to-door journeys, because we will be one big organisation that will have the gravitas to do that. I think we need to, I mean, at the end of the day, it really is about trying to improve the convenience to the passenger, so that, you know, the first option when you step out your door is not to think, I'll just jump in the car and drive down there. The first option is, right, how can we make that as easy as possible? That's where all the connectivity comes in. That's where the ecosystem of information and data comes in. We need to be able to, in real time, be understanding where transport is, how it can best create an end-to-end itinerary. You want it to be affordable, you want it to be updating in real time if there's any disruption. You don't want to have arguments with people about ticket validities along the way. You just want it all to sort of stitch together, and connectivity is absolutely front and center to all of that. So I like to think that GBR will be the potential agent to make a lot of that happen, but hitherto has been a little bit difficult to achieve. So.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I would like to go to Rafael online, and Rafael, based on your results with Darwin testing in Cornwall, do you believe that ubiquitous comms is in the future for transportation, and how far from its becoming mainstream?
Well, Darwin test in Cornwall had many difficult moments, as you can imagine, but we finally got through them together, and the results have been very positive and promising. The vehicle was equipped with a hybrid communication system with cellular and satellite interfaces. For this test, as I said before, a flat panel antenna has been installed on the roof of the vehicle, which has a low connectivity there where terrestrial cellular coverage was not sufficient or did not exist. The bit rates and other key performance indicators obtained have been in line with the expected results, the expected values, which allows us to validate the models and consider that it has been sufficient for the applications to function properly. These are magnificent results that encourage us to continue with the line of work set out in the Darwin project. We believe that satellites will play an important role for communications in mobile environments, and it's evident that for airplanes and ships, satellites are essential and the only way to ensure communications anywhere. For land vehicles like trains, cars, buses, or trucks, satellites are a complement to terrestrial cellular coverage, and the current technology must be developed to ensure seamless communication. At this point, we are facing some challenges in the space segment and ground segment. For example, at the space segment side, we have the need to develop very high throughput satellites and solutions for multi-orbit combination like GEO, LEO, or MEO working together. On the other hand, at ground segment side, we need a new generation of flat antennas with higher efficiency and gain, with lower power consumption and smaller dimensions to be able to integrate them into vehicles more easily. I think it is something that companies in the sector are already working on. We will be able to see the results in the coming years.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. I would like to come back to you, Paul. What we have heard today, lots of nice consortiums and green innovation initiatives, seeing university coming together with the industry partners and developing new disruptive technologies. And one of the good examples is coming from Darwin. Darwin brings together University of Glasgow, Oxford, as well as like 5G, Scotland, and Virgin Media O2, and European Space Agency. Do you think Scotland and is ready for this kind of consortium, and what could we do to make it happen in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're already demonstrating, an element of leadership here in Scotland, and it's the work we're doing with Mohammed, with the founding Wave 1 project. We've created a 5G lab here with the University of Glasgow, and that's acting as a magnet, but also as a platform to build on several use cases and applications as a result of that. So that's bringing together our centre, working with academia, and then bringing together research bodies, and that's bringing an element of funding directly and indirectly from foreign investment into that. So we can always do more, but I think that collaboration between government, industry, and academia is really the kind of bedrock of what the centre was founded on, to kind of bring that together. So it's about doing, I think, as Mohammed touched on, the academia, they're doing kind of historically that lower end TRL research, and we're not that interested in that. Let them guys get on with that. What we're trying to do is take the outputs from that, really take it to the next level. So take that into kind of proof of concepts, but then really look at, okay, how can we scale this? How can we take this into kind of commercial deployment and application? And that's bringing in some other partners, some key sponsors, if you like, from industry sectors, and looking at, okay, how do we look at that? How do we really scale? Because a lot of this, we know we can do lots of fantastic things with technology, and it's more about the business case is a barrier to adoption quite often, and that's what we're really trying to look at is looking at working with regional agencies, looking at what are the barriers today, what are the barriers to adopting this technology, or barriers to digital adoption and maturity, and how can we smooth those out and create that trust, create that that awareness, to enable people to say, okay, it may not even be a technology for tomorrow, but they need to be where is it on their horizon, where is it on their adoption curve, so they can look really to innovation and look at how they adopt that over time.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, because this is the biggest thing what we are seeing also innovation management literature from the academic side. Because what's happening is lots of companies are developing an excellent disruptive innovations and technologies, but to what extent they could implement and adopt and diffuse are the major problems, and maybe we need to work much more closely with the.
We'll do more around that. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what the Scotland 5G Centre is working hard to address that, really amplifying, showcasing the great work. Yeah, we're all doing and positioning that on the platform for people to come in, to visualize, experience, and then take that to the next level, working with industry and academia and government.
Yeah, thank you. Mohammed, I would like to follow up similar questions from Paul's discussion. Do you think we are doing really enough, and what else we should do to make it more, our innovations are coming, or nice, excellent research are coming from the university, reaching to the society, reaching to our industry, and then building up an innovation ecosystem, because it's an excellent example for the innovation platform what you are offering from the 5G Scotland Centre. But are there any other possibilities you could tell us?
Yes, indeed. And I would take one example as well. So working with Darwin through this Cortis project, which was a small scale project, but we did develop some good technology like a clinic on the wheels, which can go to the patients who are unable to come to hospitals for their regular checkups and other things. So the importance here is again that business models, right? So we did develop the technology, we did offer this technology more widely to stakeholders like NHS and other people, but unless we have that exact clicked business model, that technology will not really scale up and be deployed elsewhere. So what I would say is in addition to as a university, just developing these technologies jointly with industries, there is a real role of encouraging multidisciplinary research and innovation. So university is a great place where people from different disciplines can actually come together and have discussions and come up with those holistic solutions or holistic products which have a good business model, good technological solution, good pathway to marketing and pathway to adoption. And there is another very important aspect to it, which is the social aspect. So social science people are also very important. What kind of, we as technologists might think it's the best solution for society, but people might not really pick it up. And those smart Google glasses is a good example that they never picked up because they just missed this small aspect that how people will look if they will be wearing those glasses. Right, so technology was perfect, business model might be still okay, but just people never picked them up to be adopted and wearing. So I think what a university can do is university could really promote multidisciplinary research initiatives jointly with academics from the university as well as the industrial partners, and university can possibly also support more this kind of work, because this is hard work. You can more easily do work in your silos, not interacting with other disciplines, because it's very difficult sometimes to understand language of other disciplines. You could work in silos between industry and academia doing their work, industry doing their work. That might be easier, but not more productive. So university could probably really encourage this kind of hard work by all possible means and investment.
What I'm hearing from you, Mohammed, is great, because what we are trying to do at Glasgow University together with Mohammed, because there are different schools are involved in different projects, like Darwin project, we have business school. looking at from the business model side, and even we look at what are the societal acceptance and how we could implement this technology in society, because like Mohammed is saying, you might have an excellent technology, but if people are not buying, there's no use. So it's very important to look at from societal perspective. So we need more cross-disciplinary research teams are coming from the universities, and different universities needs to work together. It's not just one university and maybe cross-disciplinary within the university, but collaboration between universities and then they bringing the industry, and plus the policymakers are so important and having excellent role in there, because it's sometimes what's happening with our project we developed with Darwin. We had very nice, interesting prototypes, but sometimes regulations are not there. So we need to involve policymakers sometimes to make it happen. So it's what we are hearing today is to have the nice green innovation and implementation and diffusion. We need to have a maybe innovation ecosystem, bringing different stakeholders together to co-create, collaborate, and implement, develop, and implement this excellent initiatives in the railway, in also cars or buses, anywhere, by using, it could be a satellite, it could be a 5G or 4G, any connections, but really the key thing for us, what I could sum up from this nice panel, is the collaboration, coordination, is very key thing for green innovation and for COP26 for us, I think. Thank you for attending this panel. I hope you enjoyed this panel so far. And we have a couple of questions, I think, coming in. I would like to ask different people if I could see them much more closely. I can't see them, sorry. Make it bigger a little bit. So William Finley is asking the question, one of the biggest challenges are around transportation is fragmentation of physical infrastructure. Yes, we touch on this, yes, it's very important. I think it's a Paul touch on this and Daniela touch on this. So this is particularly evident in Glasgow with different operations and no simple integrated data ticket between different variants of transport. When it comes to smart travel in the future, lots of data will be generated by respected agreeing organizations, but what can be done to ensure this information is made available between different stakeholders to ensure optimal decisions are made for the end users? Okay.
Great question.
Great question. Who would like to answer this great question?
Well, I might as well go first, since it's sort of heading in my direction a little bit there, isn't it? But it is a really good question. It's a very pertinent question. There are technical answers to the question. So, for instance, you know, the question is right. Okay, where is the information about what's happening in infrastructure? And that might be across buses and trains and maybe Uber taxis, if I'm allowed to mention those, and you know, the new sort of electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle we might see as well. So Uber already knows where all of its vehicles are, because you know that. The railways already know where all of their vehicles are. Some of the bus companies know where all their vehicles are, but maybe not all of them, I suggest. So some of the answers are out there, and maybe by, I don't know whether it would require mandatory systems, computer systems being mandated on bus companies and the like, to make sure that there's always an API available that allows other parties to gain information about what's happening on the infrastructure in real time. So I see this being an absolute necessity in the future. If you want to stitch together a bus journey with a train journey with an electric vehicle journey, you've got to know about the current conditions, state of play, loading, any late running, everything that's going on in real time. And there's got to be some sort of umbrella system that can bring all that together. I think I remember reading somewhere there have been some efforts in Europe to create common public transport infrastructure APIs and data formats. All of that has to come forward, and then someone's got to stitch it. Someone's got to be there stitching it all together. Maybe there's some opportunities for people in the room here to think about that. It's got to include the cost of the travel. It's got to include what we do with the ticketing. This is a major challenge, and I mean, I guess the other option is just bring it all back into the public sector, and then it'll all be, I'm sure it'll all be done. Maybe not. But the answers are out there somewhere. We just haven't got to the point. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of infrastructure that we know about what's going on with it, but it needs to come together in that ecosystem. I absolutely believe 5G and other means of communication, satellite in particular, will help bind that ecosystem together. But we haven't got there yet, and it's a really good question, I have to say.
I'll just add to what Robert just mentioned there. Connected autonomous vehicles could be used as a way of connecting these different means of transport. So we had a very good discussion with one of Scottish airports, with one of Scottish railway stations, how we could connect the two in the most efficient way. And the beauty of having connected autonomous vehicles is that we, from the outset, we collect data, so telematics data about these vehicles is already available. We are sending, as I mentioned, via both satellite and 5G channel. And what this allows us to do is to, based on these data sets, we can create new models. And one of the use cases that was created, not due to the necessity of get more efficient ways of connecting transport, but came actually from insurance industry. So that use case came to us rather than we were searching for the use case. So when we said earlier that we need to connect to the consumers, one of the consumers actually of our data sets was insurance industry. So we were approached by Aviva, insurer, asking us for the data from our shuttles in order to create new insurance models for autonomous vehicles, because they see this innovation being on the horizon. In the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to become a commodity. So they want to prepare themselves as an industry to utilize these data sets that connected autonomous vehicles are providing. So sometimes we think of the immediate needs and try to resolve the problem, and then based on the discussions we had with different industry players, we see that we can utilize the data in many more different ways as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, you've got all these different kind of silos of data, and it's about how we can, you know, orchestrate them all through APIs, etc. to talk, and it's about, bringing back almost a smart city, or this is starting to happen, but it's still very much at a local level, and I think there's an opportunity here to look at how we could create a connected nation, if you like, and taking in all these different data sets and connect them together. Big hurdle to overcome, because it's also siloed and different data's coming in. But I think let's look at how we can create that orchestration platform and feed that in. Only then will you get that full end-to-end piece.
The vehicle to infrastructure, V2X, for example, would require us to connect the infrastructure around our vehicles. So this is where companies like VMO2 are coming into play with fiber connectivity, radio, and it's something that we will that will create a need for new, bigger ecosystems. So V2X is going to create that need.
One last little point. I mean, we mustn't ignore some of the simpler ways of it. I mean, if you look in London, London has its Oyster card system, which is already done. That does involve some cross-boundary agreements between the rail and the buses, but most of the buses, I think, if not all, in London are effectively controlled by Transport for London. Edinburgh's not dissimilar, although there are a few extra bus companies. Pretty much it's easy in some cities at the moment. Glasgow, actually, I think, is not particularly well served in that sense. So there's things that don't just involve technology that maybe could be considered first, because they potentially be easier to do. And you literally just have to mandate the fact that there is some sort of, I think it was mentioned by William, the need for a sort of a smart ticket or a day saver ticket that just covers all forms of transport in an area. That probably is more of a political decision than a technical one. but the technical information coming through. But there's so many smarter and cleverer things we could do across all these boundaries if we could also get the data, the technology right as well beyond that.
I think, yeah, that is very important. I like your word orchestration, Paul. I think we really need orchestration between different partners and how different actors could be connected. We need something to orchestrate everything.
It's right. I mean, the railway makes, we make all of our data free. I think it's freely available. Certainly it's available. And for instance, if you want to see an example of what it looks like, go to tracksy.uk on the internet. You can see maps of where all the trains are in real time at any station you like, any line you can chase your train around. And so the data is there. Maybe the challenge is for people to come and, like you say, orchestrate it. Is there a similar thing for Edinburgh buses or a similar thing for Transport London? Somebody could actually start to orchestrate, and then when you bring pricing into it as well, ticketing into it, maybe you're 50% of the way to answering. I think where Williams Finley's question is coming from.
Exactly what we require. We have few questions that are really related with the Darwin cow. So I'll just ask this last two questions, and then we will just tidy up the panel afterwards. The question comes to you, Danielle, is if I could say at what CAE level is Darwin cow is intended to operate?
Sure. So there are two connected questions that I can answer.
And I'll help on the second one.
First, fantastic. That's so Darwin at the moment is operating. It's a purposely built connected autonomous vehicle. So it's not retrofitted autonomous vehicle. So it doesn't have mirrors. It doesn't have a steering wheel. So it was very important for us to go through the regulatory approvals to register this vehicle for operation on public roads. So this is the first registered purposely built connected autonomous vehicle type on the public roads in the UK, which is a really big step forward for I think connected autonomous vehicles as an industry to be developed within the UK. So the vehicle currently, due to regulations, does have an operator who is but is fully autonomous. So at the moment it's in autonomous mode. It operates in Harvard Science Innovation Campus, and it's available for public to use it as a transportation service. It's in our plans to trial in the coming years the autonomous shuttle without operator on board, and this is our next step research project.
Okay, but what we have seen, like in Denmark or some other countries, even they have driverless trains. So is the autonomous trains I have been using in Denmark, Copenhagen, maybe 5-6 years ago, I can't remember.
We have
So
them
it
in
has
London
been,
as well.
it has been like,
To be fair, they do
for
have
many
rails,
years.
don't they?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
this is, we're talking about mixed traffic,
Steering,
so it's very important.
Very important to bring this technology, because some of the technologies are there. Only we just need to adapt in different contexts, different use cases, what we are talking about today.
And then specifically to that, when they talk about the SAE level, really, as Daniela says, it's fully autonomous, which kind of puts it in level 4. But really, with the safety driver, you're probably in that sort of level 3, level 4 space. When you get to level 5, it needs to be able to drive everywhere, you know, mountains in Scotland and muddy tracks and things like this. And we're quite a way away from that, but it's significantly, well, it is autonomous, and I've ridden on it as you have, and it's really good fun. And there are no interventions, so it's been great to see.
Okay.
The final one then, a little bit about connectivity. So I guess Telefonica, I mean, ITSG5 and where we're going with the true specification for intelligent transport systems and connected autonomous vehicles. Today, we're sort of in a bit of a transition space. So we today like to refer to C as the connected bit as an operator. We would say that. So we like to connect, you know, part of the project that we're doing with Daniela, you know, our terrestrial connectivity is really important to us today. And cars today already have eCall, so the emergency call service is now mandated throughout Europe. You know, getting into the entertainment within cars, we do a lot of that already. So a lot of that connected element is important, and especially for the research projects that Daniela's running, you know, that telemetry data streaming back and the connectivity between the digital maps going one way and the LiDAR data going back the other way. It's really important to have high-speed connectivity. In the future, with the ITS specification, or DSRC5, the CV2X element of it, we would like it to be cellular. We've put a lot of effort into the cellular network. I think it's taken us 30 plus years to get to 20,000 sites, you know, that's 100,000 cells. So it's an incredible investment, and that's just one operator. And we've got all of the other operators, similar kinds of 40 billion type investments. So I think that cellular connectivity, CV2X, vehicle to everything, is probably the answer in the future, but not the complete answer. It's not, it will be. So the reason we work with the Smart Mobility Living Lab and with Daniela is to understand what are the gaps, what's missing, how do we connect that infrastructure piece in and build these intelligent transport systems of the future. Whilst the specifications, it's really difficult to see how we get from where we are today to having an intelligent transport system where it's all linked together and is seamless. So there's an awful lot of work to do. I think the mobile operators play a significant role in that, but we need projects like Darwin to help us understand how to make that all come together.
Okay, thank you, David. What we have heard today in our panel, to achieve our net zero targets, we require really bold transformation as well as orchestration. What we have heard, innovation ecosystem to bring together industry, academia, and government organizations together to co-create, co-develop, and complement all these green initiatives. And it will work in that way, what we do and what we live, how we live. So it will help us to implement and develop and to be our life in the future as a green transportation. Thank you for attending this panel. Hope you enjoyed our panel. And I would like to thank you all the panelists for taking some time and coming to this panel. Thank you.